afternoon, good evening all, it's Bear here. And I'd like to welcome you to my YouTube channel, aboxwithnolid. A channel I'm creating not just to bring the awareness around the day-to-day realities of trauma and adoption trauma, but I really want to get into the actual mechanisms and not using, psych terminology. I want to get into the mechanisms of how they are living within the world that we are experiencing, so that we can better understand them and work to improve the quality of our lives. Now, this is the next video in the adoption series. And yes, this is another one that's going to get a little button pushy. And it's a carrying forward with a consequence of having a cognitive attachment. What child removal creates within the child as they're placed. That whole survival script. When we come from a cognitive attachment base, we're not living. We're doing things in a framework of instruction, not experience. We're looking for solutions, not experience. We're looking for reinforcement of our ability to survive, not open growth and experience. And that mechanism turns us into viewing ourselves as an object, not as a living person. And in all my years of being around the adoption world, and as naturally the foster care world that's part of that, because we're all kind of linked in, we're two separate groups, but I don't think we should be, but we are. But I come across a lot, especially when you're looking at Indigenous peoples here in Australia and in the US and in Canada. A lot were into the foster system before placement or went into long-term placement rather than adoption. We all view ourselves more as an object than a person because the fundamental base of biological attachment is not there. So the emotional base, the security that we get from the physical recognition of similarities between mannerisms and facial structures and vocal tone and all these things I've mentioned in the few previous videos, because that's not present. A cognitive attachment doesn't have the emotional base. We are more an emotionless object in the way that we see the structure that we are. And I want to bring the awareness to it because of what that means. When we're an object, and I just want to go into one other component of this first before I step into the more personal aspect. The system that feeds the social welfare system, the social system that feeds child removal and foster care and placement, whether they're deliberate or not, and I hesitate to say deliberate, but the only evidence I have that it is deliberate, the objectifying of the psychology of the children and infants that go through that seems to be deliberate. Because if you view yourself as an object, you are far more likely to accept things that a person wouldn't. The more dehumanized you are, and if you have anything to do with the social welfare system, government, and childcare services, you're about as dehumanized as you can get. As I said, I've sat in meetings to where adoptees, these are placement organizations, religious placement organizations, the majority of them refer to us as product, not as babies and infants and children, and not by name, as sure as hell not by name. We are referred to as product. That dehumanization reinforces that we are an object purely because if you're an object, you will accept more stuff. That is not something that a person would actually accept. And that is where this becomes so dangerous. When adoptions start to go south, when children don't meet the adoptive parents' wishes and desires, and a couple of studies that I've come across show that this is about 70% or more of adoptions, it becomes a child's fault, as I've said in numerous videos. But the child is not viewed as a child. The child is viewed as an object. I've seen it reinforced so much. You see it in movies. You see it in books. You see it in media. Oh, they're a foster care. Oh, they're an adoptee. Oh, there's this thing of, okay, what happened to them was bad, but it's okay because they are this. So the society feeds and teaches us to view us as an object, that there is something wrong with us, and that's the reason why we're in the situation of foster care or adoption. And we take that on board because we are powerless to change, especially when we're kids, our circumstance. And we need to admit that to ourselves, and we need to be aware of that because of the harm that it does. And what it does the most is it kills our dreams. It kills our ability to build the life that we always want, because in our core we don't believe we can. And oh yeah, a bunch of adoptees I know that if they hear this, they'll go, "Oh no, I'm doing blah 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 blah." Yeah, I know. I'm not trying to say this in a derogatory sense. But when you really break it down, and I've come across so many adoptees that initially have stood up and gone, "No, I'm doing everything I want to do. I'm living the life. I'm living my life the way I want to live it." And then you talk to them, and after a year or two of talking to them, you break through all the defensive structures. And they finally go, "No, you're right. I'm as far from myself and what I truly want it to be as I can get. But I don't know anything else to do, and I don't know how to change it. I can't because my relationship, my marriage, my kids, my work, my career, blah, blah. All these things are part of this avatar that we create to survive." And being an object feeds the scaffold, is the scaffold of that avatar. Because the structure of the avatar of cognitive attachment is emotionless. The emotions come from following instructions. There is no emotional base to create that avatar. It's a survival state. And we really need to grasp that if we're ever going to work with it to change it. And we need to understand that we can work with it if we're gentle and smart and in being honest with ourselves. It doesn't need to crash to work with it. And if people in our inner circle truly love us and are truly there for the right reasons, they will understand the changes that we will go through as part of working with it. But the first step, I'm going to do more videos. As this is ever going to be an expanding process of depth and information. But I first want to get the understanding, the felt sense, aha moment of what subconsciously believing you're an object actually is and what it means. Because it shapes every pursuit we have to survive, to feed a structure and to reaffirm a structure of survival, not openly explore to have an experience. We actually lose the ability after doing this for a few years to have just a pure emotional experience. Which has just reminded me of when I got sick in Canada 15 years ago, and I was lying in a hospital bed in an isolation part of the hospital, freezing cold, the exact environment of the box. Dark, cold, isolated, nobody around, and just the beep beeps and the breathing machines and all this sort of stuff, completely by myself. I started to pass away. My heart rate plummeted and nothing was happening. I hit this void of nothing and everything, which is where I go so often in my childhood moments. But within that void, the regret that I had, the only thing that stopped me and made me fight to try to get some form of attention, because my heart rate was, the last time I saw the monitor was 17 beats and it's dropping. And that was just before the whole calamity of all hell broke loose. But The regret that I had was I had never experienced just a pure emotional moment. Just that pure, completely unfiltered, unjudged, uncontrolled, untrauma responsed emotional moment. At a point past that, I came close as I've ever come, when a friend's little daughter, she was 18 months old, basically come crawling across the floor, latched to my leg, climbed up and wanted me to pick up and hold her, and I did. And she just fell asleep, nestled into my neck. That is what the emotional moment I'm talking about. But because of the objectification, the cognitive attachment baits, and everything that we do to survive as adoptees, the breadth of potential of the experience of such a purely loving, natural, beautiful moment was lost. And that's what I'm trying to bring the awareness to change, so that we can heal, so that we have goals on the horizon to head for, and the awareness to be given the grace to get the support and to learn what we need to be able to get there. So take the time and be honest with yourself. This is something you don't have to admit to anybody else. And just look at how our survival structure has shaped our goals and dreams and our emotional attachments and emotional engagement, so that you can start to choose the areas that you can expand them. As always, I love your guys' comments and feedback. Please be mindful, please be safe, and I'll see you all next time.